US, Canada, good afternoon in UK, Europe, Asia, Africa, good evening in Asia Pacific, India, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Afghanistan, Bangladesh. A lot of people join from Bangladesh as well as from Afghanistan, as well as Australia. Good evening in Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, I am really delighted to have this evening with me someone very dynamic, diplomat of our country, whom I know personally because he was our great excellency ambassador at Thailand. This personality has really been one of the very most admired ambassadors, not only in Thailand where he was the ambassador, even in other countries, because we have seen how he has been, connected with people, the real people person, real ambassador. His name is His Excellency Anil Wadhwa, ex-ambassador, ex-secretary of Foreign Affairs, Government of India. I proudly welcome on behalf of hashtag New DNA of Leadership, this Prime Leadership Series, Your Excellency, Mr. Anil Wadhwa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bachi. It's a pleasure to be here on this show with you. It's a double pleasure for me to be able to connect with so many people with whom I've been connected with, especially in Thailand, where you are at the moment.
Yes, sir. The format would be, I would take a couple of minutes to introduce you. After that, I would be requesting all the participants to park their questions. And at the end of my questions, I would facilitate their questions with you, and so that you can respond to them. As well as there are some people who will be on Zoom, I will unmute them and they can ask questions themselves. But Facebook, Global Talent Television, as well as YouTube, I will be facilitating. Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency Mr. Anil Wadhwa, former Secretary East, Ministry of External Affairs. Mr. Wadhwa was a member of IFS from 1979 till May 2017, 37 years of career. He has been ambassador of India in Italy, San Marino, Thailand, Oman, Poland, and Lithuania. And he has served in Hong Kong, Beijing twice, permanent mission of India in Geneva, and worked on deputation with the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons in the countries where he headed media and public affairs as well as government relations. Ambassador Wadhwa was head of the East European Division of MEA in New Delhi under our great foreign minister, Sushma Swaraj, and looked after relations with Russia, Eastern Europe countries. As Secretary East in the MEA, he oversees relations with ASEAN, Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific, the Gulf Cooperation Council. In fact, in the Middle East as well as in the West Asia. When you look at Ambassador Wadhwa, he has attended large number of international conferences and was Indian face to the conferences on disarmament in Geneva, First Committee in New York, as well as ASEAN, ASEM, ADMM, and small island states meetings as the Forum of India. Ambassador Wadhwa has contributed a number of articles on foreign affairs, foreign policies, disarmament, and international security. He is fluent in Chinese and knows French. He has been a senior fellow January to October 2018, and since then he is a distinguished fellow with VIF New Delhi. He also served as an independent director and advisor on some of the corporate boards. In his diplomatic assignments, he served as Third Secretary, Commission of India, Hong Kong, Second Secretary, First Secretary in Embassy of India, Beijing, Under Secretary, Deputy Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi, UN Disarmament Fellow in Geneva, First Secretary, Disarmament Permanent Mission of India in Geneva, Council of Embassy, Beijing, Director, Joint Secretary on the deputation to the Provisional Technical Secretary and later Technical Secretary in the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, Chief Advisor, Ministry of External Affairs, Earthquake Relief in Gujarat State, Joint Secretary, Central and Eastern Europe, so on and so on. Lithuania, Oman, and finally Kingdom of Thailand and Republic of Italy and San Marino. During the tenure, Ambassador Wadhwa has also served as permanent representative of India in Rome-based UN agencies, FAO, IFAD, WFP. He was appointed president of WEP board on 22nd February 2017. Ambassador Wadhwa, during his tenure as Secretary East, did something very extraordinary in ASEAN region, Arab League, Mekong Ganga Cooperation, ARF, East Asia Summit, and then he was the person who coordinated the evacuation of Indian nationals from Iraq, Libya, and Yemen. I can go on and talk about this great man. And he holds a master's degree in history with specialization in Chinese history and medieval Indian history and architecture. Fluent in English, Hindi, and Chinese, knows French. Ambassador Wadhwa has contributed huge to this country, great India. He is married to Ambassador Deepa Gopalan Wadhwa, and they have two sons. In fact, Ambassador Gopalan Wadhwa was again last ambassador to Japan when Prime Minister Modi visited Japan. That is the background of this great man. And he is with us this evening. And I see a lot of people from Thailand already on the show. I will not be able to take everybody's name, but I can see a lot of excitement in Thailand with a lot of people since morning have been talking that we have today Ambassador Wadhwa because he's very respected there. Personally, for me, I have been involved on behalf of India-Thai Chamber of Commerce, India-Thai Business Association, Indian Association of Thailand with Ambassador Wadhwa on many events. And we have had Prime Minister of Thailand on the events. We have had governors of and many people on our events. And including, we have had Sushma Swaraj last visit in Thailand when he came along with her as the Secretary East. Ambassador Wadhwa, it's an excitement, it's a real great honor and pleasure for me that you finally agree to be with me on this show. We are conducting this show since almost 9 months, and we have had Lieutenant Generals, ambassadors, corporate leaders, and it is really honor for me. Can I start my question, sir?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, first of all, for that over generous introduction. I was basically just doing a job in the Foreign Service, and it's a pleasure knowing you and being associated with you and everyone who's there on the show today, especially from Thailand. I look forward to it, and I'm ready, for your questions.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Wadhwa, your journey of around 37, 38 years in civil services officer is such a huge experience in various countries. And most admired ambassador, I call you, because people immensely appreciate and admire you as a people person. However, before going to that, I would like to know about your upbringing as a child. Who impacted you, your mom, your dad? Would be keen to know about your parents. Kindly share your journey as a child, Wadhwa sir.
So I was actually a child of the second child of two individuals whose families had come over to India after partition from Pakistan. My grandfather, from maternal grandfather, was in the British Civil Service, and he was transferred at the partition time from Pakistan to Bombay, and later on he served in Delhi as well. My paternal grandfather was a doctor, and he used to live in Multan in Dera Ghazi Khan, and he moved over to Sonipat, which is near Delhi on the outskirts at that time. Now, of course, separate bustling town. So my father was a doctor also, a medical doctor, and he served in the Wellington Hospital in Delhi first. He was with the WHO in Simla. Uh, and later on, he applied and got a job with the Madhya Pradesh government service. That was just opening up in the 50s. And so I was born in Madhya Pradesh, which is central India. I moved with my parents from place to place. I gained seven schools, also did a boarding school in between. But that experience was quite unique for me from because different schools gave you an impression that that is what the world is about. And so I learned to adapt very early in life to different situations. And I've done that throughout my life and career, obviously, when I moved in the foreign service from one country to another as well. Um, the other thing that you asked about, who was an influencing factor, I think it was both my parents. My father, he could not spare too much of time for me because he was pretty busy in his job. And my mother, of course, was a homemaker, and she was, she graduated in home science from Lady Irwin College. In those days, had a very prestigious college at that time. So she was able to devote a lot of time to me when I was growing up. I'm very grateful for that. And because of the experience of moving from one place to another, I thought this was the way of life that everybody lives. But later on, I came to realize there were more fortunate people who could stay at one place and complete their education in one or two, maximum two schools, and have the same set of friends as they went along. But actually, for me, when I look back, I think when I meet my friends from school, they are from seven different schools today, and they're all over the world, and that gives me a much wider net. So I'm looking back, I'm happy that I did. And I think this phase of my life where I lived in different places, in different houses, grew up with different friends, was most unforgettable.
Fantastic. Ambassador Wadhwa, I would now like to go to your journey. When and how did you plan your life? I understand you were a very active student at St. Stephen's College, and some of your classmates I did speak. And there are a lot of background stories of yours being one of the great students around. Who mentored you there? Was it you know uh, a planned one to be in the civil services, or it just happened, or somebody guided you? Because it's very important for us to understand, because there are a lot of people who are watching you now, and for whom you are like a mentor, like a role model. So they would like to know that how did you bring in those professional capabilities getting into Indian foreign services or civil services? Can you share some thoughts on that?
So I actually moved from school in Madhya Pradesh on to St. Stephen's College in Delhi precisely because I'd made up my mind to write the civil services examination at that time. Not many students do that at that age, but this was the reason why I shifted. And because of that, I had to obviously live in a hostel in New Delhi while my parents were in the capital in Madhya Pradesh, Bhopal, at that point in time. So there was no certainty that one could actually succeed in that kind of an examination. I also came from the state of Madhya Pradesh, so coming to St. Stephen's College, where you find people from all the premier institutions all over India. They come to study in St. Stephen's, or at least they used to at that time. I'm sure that's the case even today. And to meet them and to interact with them was a different kind of experience because they taught me a number of things which I was totally unaware of, at least in my opening first year of college. And gradually, as we developed, my vocation, of course, was history honors because I thought that was a good subject to take at that point in time if you were writing the civil service exam, and that's what people used to choose. I'd never actually done history in detail, in except for the minor parts of it which you normally do in school. But I discovered that I had great love for history. And there was a record which was set by and my today's MP Shashi Tharoor, who was 1 year my senior in college. Later on became president of college. I served in his cabinet as well in college. So he had created a record in his first year in history. And I thought that was really, really admirable till when my results came out, first year of history, I'd actually bettered his record. And so that gave me a big incentive to go on, doing what I was doing because I was not sure how I would actually fare in a subject that I had no inkling about because I was a science student in school. So there was a switch absolutely, and then along the way I developed a liking for international relations. So that was a plus point. I also did some amount of Chinese language studies while I was doing my history honors in college because there was a lot of time on hand, especially in the mornings where we didn't know what to do with ourselves. And I thought college was actually time wasted in my first year because we had only a couple of subjects to study. From that perspective, it was a good time to read about other things, to develop some new interests, etc. Going to dramatics, for instance, or look at the history society activities, which St. Stephen's offered at that time. And so it was a very enriching experience at that point in time. I enjoyed my college life, I must say. I did 5 years in that college in St. Stephen's. So I did 3 years of BA honors history course, and then after that, MA in history, which I enrolled into Delhi University, but through the college you could do that. And that was excellent because I used to stay in college in the hostel. Made many good friends, even and we still keep in touch today.
Profound background. Ladies and gentlemen, those who are watching you this program now or those who are going to be watching later can take some of the tips from such a great man and making his life a real great journey of excellence, which we will be getting into. I can see Hani joining from Durban. I can see Dr. Gupta joining from Washington, D.C. I can see John joining from Michigan. Yes, John, how are you? Early morning. Good morning to you. I can see Vidya joining from Toronto. Yes, good to see you here. Your Excellency, now let me move to your various roles you had in the global world, be it United Nations, be it First Secretary, Joint Secretary, then finally Indian Ambassador, be it Hong Kong, Beijing, Geneva, Warsaw, Muscat, Thailand, Rome. What kind of challenges did you face while being in multi country profiles and taking India's vision forward in these countries? Because moving from east to west, west to east, to Gulf to Asia again. So, how did manage these different nationalities, different cultures, and then within no time becoming the friend of the country and representing the great country of India? Can you share some journey of your excellence as a leader, as representing?
Yes. So as you rightly pointed out, and I think it's in the nature of things that when you join a country's foreign service, you move from one place to another. And so beginning from Hong Kong, I actually went there to learn the Chinese language, and I enrolled myself at the University of in Hong Kong. I also did a specialized course of interpretation because I'd already done the Chinese language in Delhi University, as I told you. So for me, it was a natural progression. And from there onwards, when I went on to Beijing as my first posting, it was natural that I would be assigned the role of interpreting also for the ambassador, which is as a junior officer. You normally do that if you can speak the language well. And in those days, China was not an open country compared to what it is today, of course. So therefore, it was easy to travel if you knew the language in a controlled manner and an atmosphere. And I was sent to draw up the most favored nation treatment agreement between India and China. This was the first such agreement that we signed after 1954, because that was the last agreement we had with the Chinese in those days. So that was one major takeaway that I can look back on my first posting to Beijing, and made a lot of local friends because of the Chinese language. And I served again in Beijing, second time around as well, as a first secretary and counselor. And at that point in time, those whom I knew as junior officials in the ministries became much more senior. It was much more easier for me to reconnect and to work with them. And since I was doing commercial and economic work on both occasions, it was very easy to connect with the 60 odd corporations that the embassy used to deal with in those days. Um, so that was as far as China is concerned. We were obviously had a period of tensions politically in those days, but they were manageable tensions, and relationship overall was progressing, even though it was not ideal. But we were coming out of it. Each year which passed, the relationship got better and better till Rajiv Gandhi's visit, which happened in 1989. And that was a sort of breakthrough in the relationship, after which India and China signed a number of bilateral important agreements. Now, I served in between in the ministry in the personnel department, where I was looking after postings and transfers, etc., and the cadre management, which is itself a very excellent learning process about how the ministry works, and came into contact with a number of colleagues whom I never would have, but for that kind of job at a much junior level. And then from there, I went on to serve in the permanent mission of India in Geneva, where I was handling disarmament, because I was a disarmament fellow with the UN for 4 months, which took me to countries which were supporting disarmament, like Switzerland, Germany, and United States and Japan, which is a big champion for the disarmament fellowship program because of the dropping of the atom bomb on two cities in Japan, as you know, during World War. So with that legacy, it was easy to step into that role. And during my time, we negotiated the Chemical Weapons Convention, the first multilateral convention of this kind, and it set up its headquarters then in The Hague, which I then went on to serve in, because I took up an assignment with them upon demand from the executive secretary of the Provisional Technical Secretariat, while I was posted in Beijing. So from Beijing, I took a sort of sabbatical from the Foreign Service to work for 7 years with this international organization. Of course, it was a lien which the government of India extended. So I was still on the rolls of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, External Affairs in India, but I was serving with an international organization as their employee. And in that role, I was looking after media and public affairs for this organization, dealing with a number of international newspapers, magazines, people who used to write on international affairs, disarmament, and security, projecting what the organization was doing and what it was doing to amp up in the future. And then I worked with the government relations and political affairs branch, which was much more substantive in terms of what was happening with each country, analyzing their attitude towards the convention and what was the political factors that would affect their stance towards disarmament in general in the world. So in that role, I was able to attend a number of international non-proliferation treaty meetings as well, which as an Indian diplomat I could have never done, because India is not a party to the NPT, as we call it, and still cannot attend those meetings. That was a unique experience. I then came back in 2000 to the ministry And as soon as I landed in Delhi, the earthquake happened in Gujarat. So you read out my CV and you said I was advisor on international relief to the Gujarat government. And that was for that brief period of 1 month where we lived in appalling conditions, but it was a challenging assignment where you used to move from place to place and make sure that the relief would reach the people who needed it at every place which was affected by the earthquake. So obviously, we used to live in very often in vehicles, not really in houses, which were badly broken or in bad shape. And it took about 10 to 15 days for people to get their lives together after that tremendous earthquake, which affected Gujarat. And that was quite an experience for me. I was then handling relationship with Russia and countries of Eastern Europe in those days. The relationship with Russia was at its peak, and we were, engaging with each other in a number of important areas, which took me many times into Russia, into various parts of Russia, and also in Eastern Europe to most of the countries. There were very good relations in those days with Eastern Europe, still are. And I think we maintain those relations very well with eastern part of Europe. And there are India's two friends, and there are a number of very important universities which still engage in Indology in these countries, for instance. So after that was the turn of going out as ambassador, because we were senior enough to do that. And my first assignment was to Poland as ambassador, because obviously I was dealing with the country and had the experience of dealing with the country. Uh, so that was a very important assignment because Poland had just joined the European Union in 2004 when I landed there. They were into a transition phase where a lot of funds had to be absorbed and a number of construction projects were being undertaken. So the development phase of Poland, which I saw, was really something transformative for that country. Today, Poland is a thriving country doing very well in the European Union, and its people are also very, very talented. Uh, After that, I went to Oman, which is actually a jewel in the Gulf. It's got a very long coastline. People are extremely nice and they are people who care about each other and also care about the whole world. I did not have any idea about what Oman would be like, but I found it was actually a wonderful country to live in. And the most important experience for me was to deal with 700,000 Indian nationals who were in Oman, their problems and also their prosperity, which was equally shared at that time because there was obviously a thriving business community from India. There was also 160 CEOs of all the companies which were in Oman. They were run by Indians at that point in time, and most of the industry in Oman had Indian labor, construction workers from all over India, which came with its own challenges and their own problems. So that's where I learned that it was very important to connect with your people and your diaspora because they needed the mission the most. And I had to give all my time to making sure that they were well looked after. And I was left. When I left, I was very satisfied at the end of those 4 years. That is an experience that I will never forget. Finally, to your great country, Thailand, where obviously Indian community is first in my mind. I can never forget. I dealt with you, the others. So some of them are on the show, I know, and at the same time, the local Thai community as well. And I had an excellent relationship with the Thai leadership at that time, including the prime minister and the princess and the king. All these people at that time were dealing very with India and engaging with India. And we had a thriving business environment as well, great cooperation in all fields, which still continues. And I'm very happy that the tradition has been kept up, after that by some excellent ambassadors we've had, including Ambassador Shringla, who's now our Foreign Secretary, and Suchitra Durai, who's now our current ambassador, whom I also know very well. And I wish her all the best in her remaining part of this assignment in this beautiful country. Um, my tenure in Thailand was unfortunately cut short because I was then called to join as secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, and that's what which you referred to, which is as Secretary East, I used to deal with the region, but also the Gulf and West Asia and North Africa, and obviously the remit was such that you had to deal with all sorts of problems which occurred and during this period, there were these three evacuations, which you also mentioned. Yemen is the one which I will never forget. It was a very challenging evacuation. Perhaps we can talk about it in detail later. But that is something, which is completely etched in my mind. And finally, my last assignment was Italy. Again, a wonderful country which has got a lot of history, and the people of Italy are very warm-hearted people. They have similar, values and traditions as Indians. They love the family, and they're also people who connect with the heart. So that was an assignment which is also unforgettable. So all in all, I think it's been a very fulfilling time in the Indian Foreign Service. I keep myself busy, as you said, nowadays, still indulging in foreign policy through the Vivekananda International Foundation. I've just written an Australia economic strategy report for the Commerce Minister, which was released by him last November. And I serve on some company board, so I have enough to do in these days of the pandemic where everybody is working from home, unfortunately. And I look forward to the time when we can travel again with vaccination, etc., safely to meet people like you and those who are on the show from Thailand. Thank you very much.
Very brilliant journey of excellence of Ambassador Wadhwa. You could, ladies and gentlemen, those who know Ambassador Wadhwa, they know him very well. Those who don't know him, but I can see some of the people from Poland. One Anil Chaudhary has joined from Poland. He says, I remember Ambassador Wadhwa. And Jack Sharoff has joined from Germany. He says, I have met him in Warsaw once. My God, Rajendra Kameshra has joined from Thailand, and he remembers him. And Dilip Mottu has joined, and Chuan Thakur has joined, and Vivek Harkoli, yes, from Indorama, director, business director at that time. And he says, yes, Ambassador Wadhwa, I remember. It has been an excellent, brilliant journey of excellence of someone very admired. Now, when I remember you were being there in Thailand, and we were from India Thai Chamber of Commerce, Indian Association of Thailand, and I especially will talk about Indian Association of Thailand, which was a 40-year-old association which recrafted, rebuilt, and you were the first patron. Ladies and gentlemen, I think Sarabjit is listening, and even Kitty Nawani, you are listening right now, and Mr. Chuan Thakur, the Secretary General of Indian Association of Thailand. He was the first patron of Indian Association of Thailand, which was rebuilt under Gurumukh Singh Ji, which was, a great organization. And Ambassador Wadhwa came forward and rebuilt Indian Association of Thailand. I have a question here. Of course, we have a great ambassador right now with us, Her Excellency Suchitra Durai, who came on my show on Women Power. And of course, Harsh Shinglaji has been great to us. I have one question with you, Ambassador Wadhwa, that how did you create your brand as a totally different brand where your connection and your regular connect with people has been enormous and phenomenal? A lot of people right now on this show are joining and who are talking about you, who are writing the comments. What is that different in you, Ambassador Wadhwa, that you attract people to yourself? What makes you to be different?
So, Mr. Bakshi, I think, as I mentioned to you earlier, I learned during my stint in Oman that it's very important to connect with people from the heart. You cannot sit in your office and deal with people because people have issues and problems which cannot be solved in a bureaucratic manner. It's also very important that you listen more to people than you talk to them, which is what I try to do always, because they have things on their mind which they don't talk about if you don't let them. So that's the second issue. Third issue is that we have to look when we are serving abroad, whether as ambassador or as any official in a mission which is looking after your country. We have to make sure that the people that we serve are satisfied. If you don't do that, then your mission is not complete, and there are flaws in it always. And fourthly, I think it's very important also to make sure that you derive some benefit for your people from the role that you have. And that you mentioned the association, etc., and the Chamber of Commerce, etc. Now, in all these, what I always had in mind was that we should not work at cross purposes with each other, that we should work together because in unity there is a lot of strength. And if we can work together, we can become that much of a bigger force for the common good. So that's the principle that I've always followed. And I don't think rules and regulations are there. They are not made for not helping people. They are made to be able to help people or to interpret them in such a way that you can help people. So if you remember, we also started for the first time the open house for the common people in our consular section for the first time, which I tried to implement because otherwise, many people who had no recourse, being some of them were in Thailand, and they had come to Thailand under difficult circumstances, they did not have the proper paperwork, and that issue cannot be solved through applications. So that's something that you have to listen to people. And once that started, then of course things started falling into place much better. So that's is a tradition I believe which continues, and I'm happy that I was able to start that and try and bring all the associations together to work together in a bigger body.
Yes, sir. So nice of you. And in fact, we are really thankful to you for the Indian Association of Thailand. And in fact, Deepak Sajnani is saying he is the president of Sindhi Association. He's saying, Anil sir, we are missing you in Thailand. Your Excellency, I would like to further go deeper into aspect of your success stories of being a great diplomat. And as it was told that under your leadership, India drew up the most favored nation agreement between India and China. And it is said that since 1954, it never happened. And this is the first time you could get it. How did this happen? What were the issues? What were the challenges? But then you made it possible as a diplomat.
So I think there was a desire on both sides, India and China, when they started in the process started in 1978, and of course we drew it up finally in 1984 or thereabouts, and took a whole year or so to draw this agreement up. And the way we did it was to put down quantities which we would buy and sell from each other. In those days, the Chinese were insisting on balanced trade. So obviously, there were two columns: what we would buy from China and what we could sell to China. And from what we could buy to China and sell to China also had to be identified. So, being a Chinese speaker at the interpreter's level, I was asked to travel to the various Chinese provinces. So I traveled to about 19 of them. I met with the corporations concerned, and we identified a list of items which could be sold and which could be bought. And that's how this agreement came into force. It's a simple agreement which is just 1 or 2 pages, but it meant a lot in those days because it started the bilateral trade on a most favored nation basis between India and China. So our duties immediately came down. We became competitive in each other's markets. And from there on, the trade between India and China took off. So from a balance trade of about, we started with $200 million. Today it's close to $100 billion. And over the years, this has kept progressing steadily. Obviously, there are two large economies, there are two large countries, they're neighboring countries. So there's a lot of scope to do that. But in those days, to identify this and to start anew was quite a challenge. And personally, I feel that it's something very concrete that I contributed at a very young age to the whole process of this relationship between the two countries.
Fantastic. Your Excellency, again, in your journey of excellence, as we discussed earlier also and in my introduction as well, this evacuation of Indian nationals from Iraq, Libya, and Yemen, it is said that under your leadership, it went without any major hiccup. And it was so smooth that entire government of India was recognizing Ambassador Wadhwa for creating such a smooth operation. What was that in you which made it possible to make a very smooth transition of getting these Indians back to the country? And it was known as Operation Rahat, I suppose. Again, there are people who are going to learn from your experience as a leader, as a great diplomat, pick up those threads, because there are some people who are youngsters who have joined us from a couple of colleges and universities and who would like to see you as one of the role models. What made you to keep that so easy transition without any hiccup? Can you throw some light, sir?
Yeah, so I think I'd start off by saying that there were a number of players in that operation. It was just that I was at a position then that I had to coordinate this. So I was, given the role of a coordinator here at headquarters to make sure that all parts of this operation worked smoothly. And I must say that we had great support from late Mrs. Sushma Swaraj, who was the foreign minister, external affairs minister at that time. And the prime minister himself was very keen that the operation went very smoothly. We had General V.K. Singh, who was the also in the ministry as junior minister, who was himself, leading the operation from the field. So it had three components. It had Yemen, it had Saudi Arabia, and it had Djibouti. Because we were flying our sorties from Djibouti into a window of 4 hours into Saudi Arabia, which we got every day for about a week or so, during which we had to evacuate all Indian nationals from Yemen. And that meant that we could not waste any time. The sorties had to go with a gap of about 10 minutes or so. They had to fly on the flight path which was given to us, which is flying into Hodeidah from Djibouti and then on to Sana'a at right angles, and then come back on the same way. If they diverted from that flight, there was always danger that the flight could be shot down. So the pilots had to be extra careful to do that. And everything had to be done, the boarding had to be completed in all the four sorties, and the planes had to leave the airspace of Yemen because after that, the war was going on. The Saudis had given up that window to us. Every day the window used to change because sometimes it used to be from 8 o'clock onwards, sometimes 9 o'clock onwards, sometimes 12 o'clock for 4 hours. And so we had to adjust that as well. The planes had to be ready, the crew had to be ready. That apart, there were a number of nationals who were stuck at the ports in Yemen, or at least they were told to move from the hinterland onto the ports because that's where the ships could meet. Because they could not reach Sana'a, the country was going through a civil war as well at the same time, along with the bombing, so it was difficult. And so many people from many Indian nationals reached the ports in Yemen. So the Navy had to do a rescue operation there. Sometimes they had to send in dinghies to pick up the people because of the tide. So that was a challenging operation as well. And once they came into Djibouti, then they had to be flown into their respective places where they came from. So we had to allocate flights to Bombay or to Pune or to the south, many cities in the south, or elsewhere. And from there on, the railways had to take over and to take them to their homes. We could not just leave them, at a station and think that they will reach back home themselves. So it was a kind of a chain which had to be coordinated round the clock. There was always this danger that if one part of the chain fell apart, then the rest of the chain would also collapse. So therefore, we had some hiccups along the way, but by and large, it went off very smoothly. And we were able to rescue about 6,900 people. About 950 odd were foreign nationals, and the rest were, of course, Indians.
I think in between we got disconnected. Yes, see the profound background of Ambassador Wadhwa. In fact, Rajendra Kamishra is writing IIT Alumni Association. He says during the farewell from IIT Alumni Association, I had included in my speech our one statics. During your tenure in Thailand, you had about 3,000 engagements. It was very high as per any basis. It was a great learning and inspiring. You are a role model for me. Rajendra Kamishra is saying, keep busy and engaging in various spheres of activities. Yes, Rajendra ji, I fully agree with you. I have had many dinners at Ambassador's house, and he has been a great host as well. And he used to have every Saturday evening, I think alternative Saturday, I remember, gathering at home. One Saturday he will go to some place, and another Saturday he will have at his home. My next question, Your Excellency. I still remember the time when you visited Thailand as a Secretary East, along with Her Excellency, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sushma Swaraj, whom we respect, one of the greatest politicians of our country, and in fact, the present Foreign Secretary, who was our ambassador at that point of time, Sri Harsh Shinglaji, was with us. And that was the very that is a very strong visit. And personally, for me, I am a Kashmiri Pandit, and we are victims of genocide. And I was raising this question again and again to Sushma ji. And last time when she was finally leaving, and then she said, Bakshi ji, bharosa rakho, Modi ji pe, ye 370 hat jayega. And I remember, and I have been in touch with Sushma ji because later when I went to Afghanistan along with In Narula and six ladies to do program on the request of First Lady of Afghanistan, leadership series for women leaders there. And that time our ambassador really helped us there in Afghanistan. I am asking a question to you. Working with such a great lady who is no more with us, we are missing her today. And you have closely worked with Sushmaji, very close. And how has been your experience with such a powerful person, such a great leader of our country? Would you throw some light? It will give us a lot of knowledge about that great woman of our country.
So I think Mrs. Sushma Swaraj was, like you said, a very accomplished and excellent leader. We were very lucky to have her as our Minister for Foreign Affairs. She had some tremendous qualities. The biggest quality she had was compassion and understanding of people. Her memory was phenomenal, so she would not forget anything. And you would have seen her perform in Parliament, where she could speak without any preparation, without any sheets in front of her, but still remember all her facts. She used to listen very carefully to you. So if you said something which is contradictory the second time, she would say, but you actually said this in the last briefing. So one had to be very careful to make sure that all the facts were clear and that the assessment would not vary from one time to another. But at the same time, I found her a very fair person in terms of how assets in the ministry were to be distributed, how people were to be posted, or whether they had any grievances which had to be looked after. And you could see that also in her dealings with the outside world. Many of you would have followed her tweets, for example, where she would actually tweet and find out if somebody was in distress. And a lot of Indian nationals around the world benefited with her intervention. She also started the system where all of us had to be put an alarm on her tweets on our phones, where even if she would tweet in the middle of the night, that we could get to know that somebody was in distress and we had to act on it. That is a system that she put in, which persists till today, I believe, and it's a legacy that she has left behind, which is very, very rich and very difficult to forget. Like you said, the country is missing her. She was a great personality, and she would back her officers to the full, and I benefited a lot from that.
In fact, I remember, sir, on 5th of August 2019, when this 370 and 35A was removed, and then she mentioned, I think I was waiting for this date, and same night, she left us. What a profound lady. We Kashmiri Pandits around the world always respected Sushma ji for her contribution and a great lady. Ah, my God, I am getting emotional about it because this is very close to my heart. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, I can see there are more people joining from Dubai. From Dubai, Supriya is saying, what a fascinating background of Ambassador Wadhwa. And we can see Yon joining from Boston saying that he is truly a great ambassador. Fantastic DK to have him on this show. Your Excellency, now I am coming to this COVID days. The impact on health safety. India proved the global world very wrong when we talk about 1 year back. India could overcome everything, and finally, India became, you know, uh, healing the world. But suddenly, last 5 weeks, whether we call it bio war or there are many stories coming in, and today the things have gone totally against us, against the country, in the sense that we could not probably manage or we could not anticipate. And today, India is into a very difficult situation. We have a lot of respects and regards from Prime Minister Modi, who has been front runner and who actually is known in the world as a global leader, who actually tried to heal the world. But now we are ourselves into a grave situation. What is your view as a civil servant? What could have gone wrong to get us into this catastrophic situation today? And how do you see us coming out from this tough, difficult, turbulent days?
So I think I would start with the fact that the second wave in India and the virulence of the second wave was quite unexpected. And I think that has caught the policymakers unawares. Along with that, I think COVID inappropriate behavior made a lot of people drop their guard in India, thinking that the virus had gone away because it had been controlled to a very large extent. If you recall, till February or so, India was very open. In fact, business as usual, economy was doing well, exports have gone up. If the figures have come out only a few days ago, and you find that our exports have gone up by 80% in April. So that means that the industry wheels were churning very fast, and India had picked up quite well. I think what happened, along with the virulence of the virus, was the fact that those 4 months from December last year till about March or so were not utilized to build up, ramp up the infrastructure, thinking that there would be no virulent second wave. In fact, the infrastructure that we had in the first phase itself, first wave, was also slowly dismantled because it was not being used. So that teaches us a lesson that whatever we set up should be kept up and maintained for the future as well. So I'm sure, having learned that lesson, India will be better prepared in the future when there is another wave, for instance. Well, this is a kind of virus which we all know is supposed to keep coming back. India is a country with one of the largest population in the world. So India has to be extra careful. And in terms of vaccines, India is not doing too badly, but at the same time, the pace of vaccination in India obviously needs to be ramped up, because the more you vaccinate, the better it is. And that's again something which the government has realized now in hindsight, but they've taken steps to fix that. Um, I'm sure, like the oxygen crisis has been overcome, and I can say that sitting in Delhi for the last 3 days, there's enough oxygen now in the hospitals, which was not the case before that. People were going from pillar to post because suddenly there was a overwhelming amount of cases all over the city, and the hospitals were full. The hospitals are still full, almost full, but the facilities and the oxygen have been provided to the hospital. So, to that extent, there is some amount of mitigation that we have. Coming 3 weeks, we will probably see much lower incidence of the virus because it's combined with the partial lockdown. We haven't gone down full lockdown this time, but there's partial lockdown. This week, there is no metro which is running as well. Now, all this has a cumulative effect, which will only show after 2 to 3 weeks. And I believe personally that we will come out much stronger. India will have much better infrastructure. There'll be more attention which will be paid to the health infrastructure. And in any case, that's going to serve us in the long term, which is what is needed for a population like this. So I would not be very pessimistic about the situation, because yes, there has been some distress because a lot of people have lost their lives in the process, and there's been a run on the entire system because of the virulence of the virus. But I'm sure India in the process will come out better prepared for the future, and that is precisely the process that is happening at the moment.
Yeah, Kunraj Sachdeva is saying Ambassador Wadhwa is absolutely right. India is powerful and India will come out. Kunraj has been our first president of Indian Association of Thailand, planted by Ambassador Wadhwa, and his wife, Kun Samsung, is also there saying hi to Ambassador Wadhwa. Absolutely, you're right. I don't want to be political, but the same people who talked about a few months back that this vaccination, why should I take? And I will not take. And today, the same people is saying, where's vaccination? So, politically, there has been very major issues, challenges with Prime Minister Modi on various fronts. I don't want to be political, but how do you see our great Prime Minister facing all these tough situations with very negative media as well and coming out with flying colors? A quick response.
Well, I think obviously the Prime Minister and the administration, the ministers, the cabinet, everybody will come under pressure in a situation like this. Need not be India, it could be any other country. Because, a pandemic of this proportion is not faced by any other country. So obviously the problems in India are always big. They always require solutions which are out of the box, and they have to be found very quickly. Otherwise, the public opinion, being a diverse democracy, is very very harsh on you. So obviously, one has to go through this phase. But I'm sure that once things settle down and that the normalcy sort of returns into the system, then the same people will start talking about the good steps that have been taken as well in the future.
Thank you very much for that response. Now I'm almost ending my questions. One of the questions, which is almost the last question, is Ambassador Wadhwa, I am running a movement called hashtag Women Power, a global movement. Where my first Women power in this race has been Dr. Kiran Bedi. You know her. She has visited Thailand. Along with you, we had a couple of events with Dr. Kiran Bedi. Now, this movement is spread in 20 countries. People call me mad because I have planned to have 1 million women on this platform by 2024. But I wish to tell you and inform the viewers as well that we are moving almost already to 800,000 women around the world. And we have a big event coming in wherein I would be joined by, very top personalities of the world. And this announcement is being made soon. So, how do you see this women power? And I have personally seen you, Ambassador Wadhwa, respecting a lot of women and giving them opportunities to excel. And how do you see this women power becoming very powerful in the world, especially in the countries where they don't have that much of say? What is your opinion? And how do you see this strengthening day by day in the world in terms of gender equality? And
So
how
I
do I
think
see your support coming into this hashtag Women Power, a global movement?
so I think it's this to me seems to be a very timely intervention by you to promote gender equality. By the way, it's also a very important plank of the United Nations today. And when I was serving as the chairman, which you mentioned, of the WFP, we had to ensure that this was implemented throughout the organization. In an organization like WFP, it's not easy to do that because they are into very difficult war zones, for instance, or places where there is famine which is going on. But at the same time, WFP had a very robust policy on gender equality, and they implemented it very well. Throughout the UN, it's being implemented today. Many countries have also been paying a lot of attention to it. It's led by the Nordic countries, as you know. And now in the Middle East, where I least expected it, this movement has caught on, and there are a number of women parliamentarians. You've seen the reforms that have come about in countries like Saudi Arabia, for instance. And India, of course, has always been in the forefront of women's empowerment. So we need to improve that, of course, much better than before. At the grassroots level, we have 33%, for example, in the panchayat system, reservation for women. What we need to do is to make sure that there are more women who are brought into public life as well. Because I think women in all spheres promote, through their contribution and through their talent, they create more opportunities in organizations. They have a lot of resilience, they have a lot of compassion. And we were talking about Madam Sushma Swaraj earlier. They know how to deal with situations with a different outlook, and they create a better world around us. So I'm glad that you are in this space, and I wish you the best of luck in taking this forward.
Thank you so much. And my last question, now, you have at home women power, Ambassador Deepa Gopalan. How do you manage between two of you, you in Thailand, she in Japan, you in Qatar, she in some other country, as a women power? How do you manage your family life? And now I think she's also retired. She's also back to Delhi. But how did you manage your own women power at home? This is my last question, and my regards to her. And I have a request pending. She needs to come on my show on women power one day.
Um, yeah, so I think when we went out as ambassadors, we were able to stay, by the way, more or less in the same place till then, thanks to the policies which were followed by successive prime ministers of India in making sure that civil servants, if they were married to each other, would not be kept apart, and if they could be put together, then they would encourage that. That happened in the foreign service as well. Thanks to the policies of Mrs. Gandhi and after that Rajiv Gandhi in particular, we were able to serve in similar missions, same missions, for a long period of time, except the fact that when I went on to the Netherlands, since I was working in the UN, obviously my wife had to be found a place to move. That didn't happen at the same time, but that's quite understandable. And then we went out as ambassadors. So that was the time when our two boys who are now bankers. they also went out to study in the United States. So in any case, we had to be going in our different paths, and it was something which was predetermined and well known in advance. And we could visit each other because we were in sort of neighboring countries, not in different continents. So it was not such a difficult task. And I think we have to be very thankful to the liberal policies of the Indian government, which helped us in this regard.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Ambassador Wadhwa, Your Excellency. I have a lot of questions already here, and I would like to take some of the questions. And here is Milane. She is saying from Spain, after meeting and interacting with so many people from different cultures and nationalities, what would be the common denominator of the best leaders? Milane Fale from Spain is asking this question, sir.
Well, a common denominator that I found was the connection of the heart, as I mentioned earlier. People all over the world are intrinsically the same, and there are a lot of values which bind us together. And all of us want to live happily and in harmony with the world. Unfortunately, there are policies and there are self-interests which come in the way and divide us. But of course, that's a utopian idea in today's world. Yet at the same time, I see that the world is getting more and more interconnected, globalized. And the best way to bridge this gap is to bring about some cultural interaction. And when the pandemic is behind us, then to have more travel to each other, to understand each other's cultures and to appreciate what the others have and learn from them.
Wow, thank you so much. I hope, Melania, you got your response. Now, I have Yon coming from Boston. She's asking for a question. She's saying that you have been traveling, and traveling across. And now I know that your wife has been with you for quite some time. How did you manage multinationals, multi-dimensional, and different cultures with same thinking, or you change your thinking going to different countries?
I think
Yon
you
from
got to,
Boston.
I think it's
I
very
think you
important.
already responded to that, but you can give her a little bit of idea.
Yeah, well, I think it's very important to understand the people of the country that you're living in and to connect with them through the history and through their culture. Of course, if you speak the language, it's much better. That's not always possible. Yet at the same time, if you understand, how their mind works and what their milieu is, how they've grown up, and things that they like, it makes it that much easier to connect with them. And I found wherever I went that there was a certain amount of curiosity in the local populations to know about other cultures. And since I'm interested in history and culture as well, so that helped me a lot in connecting with different nationalities.
Very fantastic. Yeah, I got some more questions coming in. Let me just look at this because I'm not able to get here. Yeah.
And relationship.
Yeah, there's a question coming from Shekhar. Shekhar is saying, Sir, what a profound background, what a profound journey. Is this role different from corporate leaders? Because DK Bakshi always talks about leadership remain the same. But what is the difference between diplomatic leaders and corporate leaders? Shekhar is asking this question.
Well, I think that's a very profound question because having now work now since I'm working with the corporate world a little bit for the past few years, I quite understand what it is. I think in the diplomatic world, you're basically working for your country and for your people. In the corporate world, you're looking after the company's interests first. So your outlook becomes a little different because you've got to compete. You got to make sure that you have not only your head above the water, but you got to make some amount of profits, and at the same time make sure that you progress as a person as well. But the leader in a corporate world in today's circumstances, I think, has to be very compassionate. Um, the leader has to make sure that along with the profits of the company, the people who are working in the company are taken care of. Today's circumstances are different from what it used to be before. I think in the coming years or so, we will have a similar situation, and the leadership of companies and corporates have to keep that in mind. Otherwise, we will not be able to cope with the situation just depending on governments.
Beautiful. Compassion with agility in business. Now I'm going to Rajendra Kamishraji. I am unmuting you, sir. You can go ahead and ask the question yourself. Mr.
Oh, this
Rajendra
is
Kamishra.
sorry. This is not a question. First of all, my greetings, Wadhwa ji, and I have a lot of sweet memories, lot of photographs with you, and I will always remember one thing which you did for me. It saved me from a lot of embarrassment. You know, I was the managing director of a shipping company, SC Group. We had purchased that ship, and then we could not change the flag because the Indian shipping company did not pay provident fund and other thing to that. So I, the owner of SC Group, who was a Thai business person, was very much annoyed with me being an Indian, only Indian in that company. But I remember we had a meeting at India House, and you pursued with the shipping ministry and commerce ministry to resolve that. So the thing which I always remember, that you go in details and try to resolve that. So this is a very big leadership quality, and I still follow your. You know, you are always in my thoughts. You know, your picture keeps on coming in my album all the time. So thank you very much, and I will always like to wish you all the best and look forward to meet you in the near future. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to hear you, Mr. Kim Sera. I also remember you, and you're always in my thoughts as well. And I'm glad that we are connected throughout. Since I left Thailand, we haven't lost touch. I frankly don't remember the details of the issue that you mentioned, but I'm glad that it was solved to your satisfaction.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you,
Thank you,
Kamishraji.
Bakshi. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamishraji. Many people have many stories to share. Now I have got Chuan Thakur, who is right now the Secretary General of Indian Association of Thailand. Yes, Papani Thakur, Chuan Thakur, I unmute you. You can ask your question.
No, I am totally thrilled to see Your Excellency on screen after a long time and hear your voice. I remember Peter mentioned you have visited. That day, I don't know, somehow when you came to Lions Club also, and I gave you title of Akbar because you started an embassy that, okay, general public can come and talk to you, their problems and this thing. So that was the biggest achievement, big changes in Indian embassy. Before that, we were totally unheard. We were totally, I kind of say, thrown out of the embassy. We cannot talk to anybody. They used to say, "Oh, nahi ho sakta, nahi ho sakta." Only you changed that one. So I salute to you, and I wish you a very good, long, and happy life. It's a cordial greeting from Bangkok.
And thank you so much, Chuan. It's good to hear you again, and I'm very happy that we've connected today. Even otherwise, I think we are connected. From time to time, we exchange some messages. And I'm very glad that you're doing well. And I wish you the best, your family the best, and everyone else who's associated with you to be happy.
Thank you, sir.
Papani, Kunraj Sachdev. Yes, sir, I unmute you. Kunraj Nakap, Sawadikap. Kunraj, are you there? Yeah. Okay, Kun Samsung, Sawadikap, I unmute you. Kunraj is not able to hear. Kun Samsung.
สวัสดีค่ะ
Sawadikap.
Excellency สวัสดีค่ะ Mr. Bakshi how have you been, Sir Excellency? We really miss you when I see you now.
Thank you very much. It was good to hear your voice again. It's a pleasure.
Oh, stay safe, please.
Thank you. Thank you. You too.
Any question for Samsung?
No question because Excellency, when he was here, he did everything for the Indian community and also
Yeah.
for even for the Thai people who like to go to India.
Yeah. Even at
Thank you.
All education fairs, and Raj Sachdev, the first president of Indian Association of Thailand. And in fact,
Yes, sir.
Apostle Wadhwa, I would like to inform you that Indian Association of Thailand took the first lead to send oxygen cylinders and oxygen concentrators to India, followed by India Thai Chamber of Commerce, IIT Alumni Association, Mandir Committee, and all that. The huge number has already arrived. Yeah. Yes. Who's
Anil.
there? Sorry. Okay. Now, let me move on. Dilip Motu, you want to say something? You want to have a question quick? Then we can unmute you. Yes, Motu sir.
Yeah, it has been a very enterprising journey for Mr. Wadhwa to be representing India in so many countries for such a long time. And it has been a very enriching experience to listening to you today and sharing your experiences which you have been experiencing all across various countries. Right now, we are into a situation where the country is looking very gloomy and we are facing a lot of problems because maybe the coordination and other things are not working in unison. What do you suggest that should be done to create that environment wherein we can coordinate all the activities so that the people who are suffering get the best benefit?
So I think as I mentioned earlier, what has happened is that the virulence and the ferocity of the second wave of the virus has taken quite a number of people and institutions by surprise here. And that includes the hospital infrastructure, the healthcare workers, etc. But I think over the past week or so, I can see that grip coming back because people now are dealing with the problems which are real, and they understand the magnitude of the problem, which was not measured earlier. And having got a grip on that, then I think the policies can be better coordinated. Already, if you see that there is a delegation to the states.
हाँ मम्मी जी मेरठ में सब लोग ठीक है
I think we have
मेरठ में सब लोग ठीक है
So I think just to complete that,
वहाँ मम्मी का भी हो गया था वैक्सीनेशन पूरा
we have to
दूसरे में थोड़ा
actually
टाइम लग गया था वो भी हो गया
Can you mute yourself? Who's that? Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
I'll just complete that. So I think going forward, we will see much better coordination coming up. As the states, assume more roles in the future, because in the vaccine rollout in particular, which is not going to happen in so much of a hurry now, we can foresee that this will only happen after a month or so, when India will go full force with the vaccination programs. Till that time, we have to get all this policy coordination in place, and that is exactly what is happening today. So I'm glad to see that, and I think that trend one can see over the past week.
Yes, I think we will have a good future around. So, Basant Kumar Dugar, a quick question, but a quick one, not a detailed one. Basant.
Okay, very small question. Is there any hope in the future RCEP India will be one of the partner? Out of 16, India withdrawn and only 15 left. Is there any hope to get 16 multiplier, 15 times multiplier to all people, including chartered accountants?
You're talking of the RCEP, I presume.
Right.
And right. So I think there's been a review which has happened, and the decision was taken only after that review. There is a policy of PLI, which has been unleashed in India in 16 sectors, 13 sectors, going up to 16 now. We will see how that works, and if that makes manufacturing stronger in India, then India will have a rethink on this. But at the moment, we are where we are. There is some movement one can see with other FTAs, for example, with Europe and with UK, that decision has been taken. There may be a limited FTA with the United States as well. But I think eventually India will have to look seriously at what it does with RCEP. And I'm sure, that relook will happen only when the current programs of manufacturing in India are reassessed. So I would give it some more time, and then we will come back to this question.
बहुत अच्छा लगा आपको मिलके, आपसे मिलके बहुत अच्छा लगा.
Thank
Wish
you
you all
very
the
much.
best.
Nizam. Thank you very much. Thanks. No, I have many questions coming in, but we are already racing with the time. My God, it's going to be 1.5 hours, sir. Now I need to close it. Ladies and gentlemen around the world, and I get in Narula for the vote of thanks. Achan in Varshav, can you unmute and get him video on in Narula? In Narula, sir, he has been part of the Indian Association. He has been vice president of Namadari Sangat Asok Road. And he is right now holding the fort of global talent in Thailand. I am right now in India. He is the man. So he is there. Achan in Sawadee Khap, and go ahead with your vote of thanks.
Sawadee Khap, Dr. Bakshi, how are you, sir?
Good.
Excellent, excellent. Let me get into the job right away. First of all, I would like to thank Your Excellency Anil Wadhwa to no end for the discourse this evening. He has shredded some very beautiful thoughts this evening, and let me try to sum it up. He truly is a gentleman and an admired diplomat, a real people connector with his feet grounded on the floor, very humble, very listening to people. And I think that is brilliant. His Excellency, grandfather and father were doctors. And I think the DNA of caring, kindness, and compassion is deep within his DNA too, within his vein, within his blood. His Excellency is influenced by the mother, and that was brought about the best that you can see in him today. Children of diplomats, many study have been done in European Union and in many American universities, tend to be more successful because they have traveled to different places, know different people, have friends from all over the world. They are adaptable and open-minded. The mindset is more tolerant to the differences. The outlook is always on similarity. His Excellency had to change school, university, met people from different parts of the world, have traveled the world, have thus been more adaptable. He is more open-minded. He's looking at similarity, and he is more tolerant to the differences. His Excellency moved from the studies of sciences to history to culture. And during his free time, let us learn from it. He did not waste it. He studied Chinese. If you can communicate with people, you can connect with people. Communication is the foundation of the connection. So learn as many languages as you can, and that will help you in your career forever and always. His Excellency, if I may sum it up, his advice, how has he created his own brand? And we can follow, we can be a copycat of him because he is successful. And if we do what he does, we also would be successful. He used walk around strategy, not sitting behind the desk, walking around, meeting people, talking to people. And he advises a great listener. He advises to also have a service mind. Always derive benefits for your people. Work as a team, be it at the inter or intra-organizational level. Unity is a must for progress. Be compassionate. Look after your people. Know your people. the difference between the diplomatic leadership and the corporate leadership, if he has to sum it up, His Excellency advised that at the diplomatic level, you're looking at the macro level. However, at the corporate level, it's at the micro level. So the concentration of the country and the people as a whole for the diplomatic leadership and for the corporate leadership, look after your people, know your people. You cannot go wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all stand up and give a big round of applause to His Excellency Anil Wadhwa. Sir Anil Wadhwa, I had the pleasure of meeting you and I was really impressed. You became my role model at MISB school in Bangkok, Thailand. Thank you, sir. I will never forget that experience.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful summary that you did. Nobody could do it any better.
Thank you, sir.
Kapun Khab, Achan In, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen around the world who have been watching the show or who are going to be watching it later on. The way our great Indian ambassador, Anil Wadhwa, who has been a great diplomat to various countries around the world, keeping the Indian flag high around the world and impacting different communities, different nationalities, different regions of the world, has really impacted with this talk what we had this evening. I would like to thank Your Excellency Anil Wadhwa on behalf of Global Talent Company and on behalf of #New DNA of Leadership for your time. It has been a profound experience to meet you online. I am in New Delhi. I am going to catch up with you after this present situation, which is bad, gets over in next maybe couple of weeks. And I'm going to catch up with you because we would still need your lot of guidance on the corporate front in Narula. Am I right?
Absolutely.
On the corporate front, where we could utilize your great experience because we do a lot of work for the corporate world in Asia Pacific as well as globally. Thank you very much, sir, and wish you all the best. Stay safe, stay good health, and my regards to Ambassador Deepa as well. And look forward to catching up with her on another show. And I salute you for your commitment and love for people, I cannot forget spending time with you on various platforms. I also have huge photographs of yours with me. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very
and
much,
Dr.
Mr.
Bakshi, if I may, sir, may God
Yes,
bless you and your family, Your Excellency, forever and always till the end of time. You have contributed to our country. You have contributed to the world. For that, we are ever grateful, sir. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much. Wish you good night in Asia Pacific and good day in US, Canada, and good evening in UK. All the best. We are signing off with a lot of thanks to His Excellency Ambassador Wadhwa. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank
สวั
you,
สดี
sir.
ค่ะ สวัสดี
สวัส
ค่ะ
ดีครับผมสวัสดีครับ
สวัส
คุ
ดี
ณรา
ค่ะ
ชนะครับคุณราชสวัสดีครับคุณราชนะครับ
Namaskar ji.
How are you คุณรา
คุณ
ช
ราชและคุณสมทรงสวัสดีครับ
ส
ผ
วัสดี
ม
ค่ะ
Thank you very
สวัส
much
ดี
คุณ
ค่ะ
ราช for concentrators to be sent to India ขอบคุณมากนะครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ thank you very
More
much
are
good
coming.
night sir
Bakshi ji,
night,
more
sir.
are coming.
More
Ah,
are coming, I understand.
Yeah,
Yes.
Friday night.
Okay, okay. ขอบคุณมากนะครับขอบคุณ
ส
ค
วัส
รั
ดี
บ
ค่ะ good night sir good night
Thank
นะคะ
you.
Thank you, sir. Not
Thank you.
Mr. Wadhwa, sir. Thank you very much.
Very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
บ๊ายบายค่ะ good night ค่ะ